Hi everybody, so I'm back with part 4, and we're starting with motion 8. This is for the Idaho 4 Moscow murders Bryan Kohberger motion and limine hearing that happened on April 9th. I am going to summarize this for you. I've already done motions 1 through 7 in my previous videos, so make sure you go watch those. This is starting with motion number 8 regarding bushy eyebrows. Now, we all know Dylan Mortensen was an eyewitness, and she's subject to close scrutiny because of that. Excluded from the trial. They want her excluded, defense does, because they're saying she was so uncertain, and only after seeing for 1 second she had no lineup, and they started stating the Mason-Brigger's test, if I'm correct on that. That's to see how much memory is affected. They went into the different phases of the Brigger's test, and it says the opportunity to see, which is the first phase of memory. Then there's distance, lighting, and it was not lit. There was twinkle lights in the living room. And there's duration, and she only saw him for 1 second. He was 3 feet away from her or exiting the back sliding door. We don't know for sure because things keep changing. And there's a degree of attention. She was very drunk that night, and she had champagne, she had mimosas, she had like 9 to 10 drinks in between that throughout the day, and she ended the night with a drinking game. So she was heavily intoxicated, and she could not remember. And Mowry kept suggesting bushy eyebrows to her in interviews, and then she eventually kind of caved to that. She has consistently, Dylan has consistently said she was in a dream state, fuzzy, cloudy, sleepy, drunk, and unreliable. They're saying she's unreliable. She has said that she's afraid throughout the night, but then that thought Xana was just passed out on the floor. They said that Mowry was the first to say baklava, which I believe is the face covering, and suggests that person was wearing that. She never used that word, suggested by law enforcement, used to hide identity, face covering. Survivors in hotel, so I guess the survivors stayed the night in a hotel room and then they first called friends, law enforcement, all throughout the night. So they stayed in the hotel room after this incident obviously was reported to police the night of November 13th. They were saying that she had been interviewed by law enforcement 2 times, and that word was used in the PCA, which the media latched onto and can affect her memory. It says that she did not recognize Bryan Kohberger's photo, which is referred to as bushy eyebrows were present. So because Dylan Mortensen supposedly can draw, they are putting more reliability, they being law enforcement, on her testimony. But the idea that she can draw someone that she couldn't see their face because it had a face covering doesn't make sense. Now the state got back up and said Mason-Brigger's or Manson-Brigger, whatever that test is not applicable. Law enforcement ID process, they did lead her with bushy eyebrows description. They said her descriptions were consistent, which we know they were not. And 3 interviews she described as bushy. State would repeat their argument, and the judge will take it into advisement for that one. Now motion number 9 is about the 911 call. State seeks to have the 911 call admitted and the transcript, and not as here, so the audio and the transcript, and they believe it's not hearsay but excited utterance. This is where they clarified things. They said BF, or Bethany Funk, calls friend, and then Bethany Funk has said friend and her boyfriend, which is Hunter Johnson, come to the residence. It was Hunter Johnson that instructed the girls to call 911. Now the defense got up and started talking about the affidavit for Josiah Roloff and the DM's messages in bubble form. She said the 911 call was made 8 hours later. State wants to play the transcript, context, and captured in messages. More happens during that time. Use of Snapchat, IG doesn't just stop. So Anne talked about how these girls were doing so much more than just texting each other throughout the entire night into the next day. They were editing their resume, they being Dylan, I believe, and photos, and they were on Snapchat, and yeah, they were doing a lot on their phones. They said the person on the 911 call with the initials EA was just repeating what they had been told. I believe that's Hunter Johnson's girlfriend, and it's hearsay. It's not an excited utterance, that she did not see or experience anything directly. Dylan Mortensen not responding to anything in the call and wants to say what she saw. they said that Dylan reviewed the text that she had sent to Bethany and all the roommates. She did indeed. She was editing pics. She was on Instagram actively reviewing and speaking with others, and that's all not an excited utterance. The state got back up and said that this is a startling event, and then they run downstairs to Bethany Funk's bedroom. They wake up. They can't hear their roommates. They call friends over, discover Xana, and instruct to call 911. Judge only can add to context of other party plays first. Completion doctrine. So he said that if one party or the other talks about this, then the other party can get up. Meaning if the state talks about it or the defense talks about it, the other party can get up and talk about it and give context to what they're hearing and reading. But falls under the completion doctrine, which allows them to do this, but it's only if one party brings it up. With regards to Hunter Johnson's girlfriend, EA, it's all hearsay and he's not hearing an argument for that. Now, motion number 10 is about the text messages. It brings in phone records from Dylan Mortensen. The defense said that there's more to the text messages than what the state has provided to the court. More activity between these two. The judge wants to learn what the two were using social media for. Anne says that Dylan created a contact on her phone at 3:51 a.m. It makes a difference depending on what timeline you were going for, the state or the defense. So she put a big whopper out there when she said, depends on what timeline you're looking at. If you want to accept the state's timeline, that might not be true, and suggesting that she has something in her back pocket. The judge is just going to consider what's going on, and then we'll make a judgment. So he just kind of wants to look over everything a little bit more in context as to what these girls were doing on their phones the night of the murders and into the next morning. So that is motions 8, 9, and 10, and I will be back with the next part, starting with motion 11. If you guys like this, make sure you give a like and follow, and go watch the rest of my videos that address motions 1 through 7. See you soon.